¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Wednesday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Tuesday. Yeah, I knew that. It's only Tuesday, folks. How's it going, Chai? Echo Wrestle Dragon, Astro, Alio. Howdy, everybody. And here, I thought it was already Wednesday. That's how bad it is. I want it to be the weekend. I apologize if sometimes the stream takes a little bit of time. Unfortunately, sometimes people decide to call in exactly right before we close, of course, and, well, it is what it is. We should build a wall in the sky to keep our good air in America. I could not agree more, BPCL. I could not agree more. Clearly, the intellectual giant that is Republican candidate for Senate, Herschel Walker, the just towering intellectual giant, might have had a point there, that we need to build, definitely build a wall to keep the good air here, of course, and keep the bad air over China. Now, that's how that works. Every piece every piece of Herschel Walker's campaign is a touchdown. True. Don't worry, we'll get to that. I already sent you links on Twitter and everyone's debating with new January 6th to 7th today. What? I'm looking at some of the stuff you sent me. Hutchinson testimony jolts Justice Department to discuss Trump's conduct more openly. Yeah. Oh, the 7th hearing of January 6th. Okay, now that makes sense. I did not see all of it. I just caught glimpses of it from left flank. That's usually the drop-off point after majority report, so I mean, I don't even know if this video requires any commentary, to be quite honest, but I guess we gotta show it.
That he got rid of the pipeline. Yeah. Get rid of the pipeline. Get rid of our energy. Start this downfall.
Alio with another 10 biddies, making it 20 total. Thank you.
That he got rid of the pipeline. Yeah. Get rid of the pipeline. Get rid of our energy. Start this downfall.
I have no idea what he just said there. It is about as incoherent as it gets. Ooh, okay. Sorry about that. It is about as incoherent as it gets, and like, I think what he was trying to say is that they're taking away our energy because of the pipeline. 30 biddies? What? Another one? Ooh. Well, I appreciate that.
Because we need energy for everything.
We need energy for everything.
And they were talking about the Green New Deal. You know, climate change. I'm going to help y'all with that real quickly.
Oh, please. In Twitch chart. What? Oh, you must be seeing something else. Okay. Because right now I'm just seeing the mod, like, manager section right now.
And I'm gonna do it in the Wrightsville way, so you can understand what I'm saying.
Bro, I couldn't even understand your first concept. Your first point, I should say. I'm going to be very charitable and assume that what he means is that, incorrectly, of course, that the Keystone Pipeline is taking away energy or something like that. That's just not the way it works.
We, in America, have some of the cleanest air and cleanest water of anybody in the world.
Well,
So what we do is we're gonna put from the Green New Deal millions or billions of dollars cleaning our good air up. So all of a sudden China and India ain't putting nothing in there cleaning that situation up. So all that bad air is still there. But since we don't control the air, our good air decided to float over to China, bad air. So when China gets our good air, their bad air gotta move. So it moves over to our good air space. And
yes.
now we gotta clean that back up.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Herschel W. Walker. Oh my god. I mean, what do I even say to this? What do I even... Where do I begin with this? I mean, what do I say? It's not true. Those were words. I'll give him that. Those were words that he used. And they made sentences at some point, in some cases. But really, there is nothing scientific to debunk there. I mean, what do I say to that? We can't control the air. Since we don't control the air, our good air decided to float over to China's bad air. So when China gets our good air, their bad air got to move, so it moves over our good airspace. And now we gotta clean that back up. Oh, yeah. Oh. Okay. I don't even know. You're brave for streaming after a full day's work. Yeah, I mean, usually I stream and then do a full day's work. I mean, it's the same, just reverse operations, right? Sorry to say I think everyone is in a wild universe. I bumped into people confused about COVID in 2022. What? What was the confusing part? That it's still a thing? It's very much a thing. I got it. So, yeah, it's pretty real. And mind you, this was supposed to be a dunk on the Green New Deal. Okay. The Republican Party, folks. Yeah. The Republican Party. There are 3 people saying that Obama's running the government. Really? That's funny. Oh yeah, I saw those telescope images. Although I'm gonna be honest, I didn't watch enough of the January 6th to see like exactly what exactly happened there. Um, how long was this thing? Hey, DT, I just spent most of the day outside and wild, so hot outside. If it keeps going, people are gonna drop like flies because of this heat. Yeah, it's incredibly hot. And heat is pretty dangerous, folks. So don't don't sleep on the heat. The heat is very, very much a threat.
Once the litigation ended and the Electoral College met, the election was over. And here's President Trump's.
To clarify, Ms. McEnany, so
Oh, is
back
it
to my
still
previous
going on?
question, it was
Wait, is it still going on?
And this is what Ivanka Trump told us.
December 14th was the day on which the Electoral College met, when these electors around the country
No, I don't think so.
met and cast the electoral votes consistent with the popular vote in each state. And it was obviously a public proceeding or a series of proceedings that President Biden had obtained the requisite number of electors. Was that an important day for you? Did that affect sort of your planning or your realization as to whether or not there was going to be an end of this administration?
I think so. I think it was my sentiment probably prior as well.
Judd Deere was a White House deputy press secretary. This was his testimony about what he told President Trump.
Until the next episode.
I told him that my personal viewpoint was that the Electoral College had met, which is the system that our country is set under to elect a president and vice president. And I believed at that point that the means for him to pursue litigation was probably closed.
And you recall what his response, if any, was?
He disagreed.
We've also seen this testimony from Attorney General Barr reflecting a view of the White House staff in late November 2020.
And then at that point, I left. And as I walked out of the Oval Office, Jared was there with Dan Scavino, who ran the president's social media, and who I thought was a reasonable guy and believe is a reasonable guy. And I said, how long is he going to carry on with this stolen election stuff? Where's this going to go? And by that time, Meadows had caught up with me and leaving the office and caught up to me and said that he said, look, I think that he's becoming more realistic and knows that there's a limit to how far he can take this. And then Jared said, yeah, we're working on this. We're working on it.
Likewise, in this testimony, Cassidy Hutchinson, an aide to Mark Meadows, described her conversations with President Trump's Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe, a former Republican congressman.
He had expressed to me that he was concerned that it could spiral out of control and potentially be dangerous, either for our democracy or the way that things were going for the 6th.
Yeah.
Of course, underlying all of this is the fundamental principle that the President of the United States cannot simply disregard the rulings of state and federal courts, which are empowered to address specific election-related claims. The President cannot simply pretend that the courts had not ruled.
by that time, the president or his associates had brought had lost 60 out of 61 cases that they had brought to challenge different aspects of the election in a number of states. They lost 60 out of 61 of those cases. So by the time we get to January 3rd, that's been clear. I assume, Pat, that you would agree the president is obligated to abide by the rulings of the courts.
Of course.
And I assume you also would...
Everybody is obligated to abide by rules, of course.
And I assume you also would agree the president has a particular obligation to take care that the laws be faithfully executed.
That is one of the president's obligations, correct.
Yet President Trump disregarded these court rulings and the counsel from his closest advisors and continued his efforts to cling to power. In our prior hearings, you have heard considerable testimony about President Trump's attempts to corruptly pressure Vice President Pence to refuse to count electoral votes, to corrupt the Department of Justice, to pressure state officials and state legislatures, and to create and submit a series of fake electoral slates.
That's a scary part right
there. We will
there.
show you what other actions President Trump was taking between December 14th, 2020 and January 6th. I yield to the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Raskin.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Throughout our hearings, you've heard how President Trump made baseless claims that voting machines were being manipulated by foreign powers.
Yeah, the ghost of Hugo Chavez and all that. What makes this dangerous is that this dude, in conjunction with the Republican Party, because this couldn't happen alone, there had to be some members of the Republican Party that had to be sold this idea. They were planning to essentially shoehorn fake electors to overturn the will of the people. I mean, like that's bottom line, that is inconceivable to me, and automatically makes the Republican Party dangerous by default. They just should not be anywhere near power whatsoever. And it also kind of goes to show just how fragile the Electoral College is. Why do we continue to use such a system that could be so fragile and is based on essentially on the honor system? It literally hinges on norms, not legal guardrails. It is just literally hanging by norms, and because certain officials did the right thing, basically that plan did not come to fruition. Absolutely, they were in favor of it or did nothing about it. Either way, they should receive the blame just the same. Yeah, to me, it's all the same. Carte blanche. The Republican Party is just ineligible. The Republican Party is incompatible with democracy. I have no other ways of putting it. The Republican Party is just not compatible with democracy. I mean, up to a certain point. I mean, you can't tolerate folks who are intolerable. Enough is enough with these people.
House for an unplanned meeting with the president, the meeting that would last multiple hours and become hot-blooded and contentious. The executive order behind me on the screen was drafted on December the 16th, just 2 days after the Electoral College vote, by several of the president's outside advisors over a luncheon at the Trump International Hotel. As you can see here, this proposed order directs the Secretary of Defense to seize voting machines, quote, effective immediately, but it goes even further than that. Under the order, President Trump would appoint a special counsel with the power to seize machines and then charge people with crimes with all resources necessary to carry out her duties. The specific plan was to name Sidney Powell as special counsel, the Trump lawyer who had spent the post-election period making outlandish claims about Venezuelan and Chinese interference in the election.
With no
among
evidence,
others.
by the way.
Here's what White House counsel Pat Cipollone had to say about Sidney Powell's qualifications to take on such expansive authority.
I don't think Sidney Powell would say that I thought it was a good idea to appoint her special counsel. I was vehemently opposed. I didn't think she should have been appointed to anything.
Sidney Powell told the president that these steps were justified because of her evidence of foreign interference in the 2020 election. However, as we've seen, Trump's allies had no such evidence and, of course, no legal authority for the federal government to seize state voting machines. Here's Mr. Cipollone again denouncing Sidney Powell's terrible idea.
There was a real question in my mind and a real concern, particularly after the Attorney General had reached the conclusion that there wasn't sufficient election fraud to change the outcome of the election. When other people kept suggesting that there was, the answer is, what is it? And at some point, you have to put up or shut up. That was my view.
Why was this, on a broader scale, a bad idea for the country?
To have the federal government seize voting machines, that's a terrible idea for the country.
Yeah.
That's not how we do things in the United States.
I mean, like, this is like straight up out of a movie, folks. This is straight up out of a movie. And they did show Mitch McConnell announcing to Congress that Joe and Kamala were the winners. Yeah, it means nothing to me. I mean, Mitch McConnell at the end of the day is just as slimy and evil. MTG has not gotten punished yet, even with her tweets about January 6th. Were those like recent tweets? Or do you mean tweets on January 6th or about... Wait, were these recent tweets, by the way? Just out of curiosity.
Powell, Mike Flynn, and others. President Trump now knew all these claims were nonsense, not just from his able White House lawyers, but also from his own Department of Justice officials and indeed his own campaign officials. As White House counsel Pat Cipollone told us,
with respect to the whole election fraud issue, that to me it's sort of, if you're going to make those kind of claims, and people were open to them early on because people were making all sorts of claims, and the real question is, show the evidence, okay?
It wasn't just the Justice Department, the Trump campaign, and the Trump White House lawyers who knew it. Even Rudy Giuliani's own legal team admitted that they did not have any real evidence of fraud sufficient to change the election result. Here's an email from Rudy Giuliani's lead investigator, Bernie Kerik, on December 28, 2020, to Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. Mr. Kerik did not mince any words. We can do all the investigations we want later, but if the president plans on winning, it's the legislators that have to be moved, and this will do just that. Mr. Kerik wanted the president to win. What he didn't say in this email was what he would later tell the Select Committee in a letter that his lawyer wrote to us in November. The letter said, quote, "It was impossible for Mr. Kerik and his team to determine conclusively whether there was widespread fraud or whether that widespread fraud would have altered the outcome of the election." In other words, even Rudy Giuliani's own legal team knew before January 6th that they hadn't collected enough actual evidence to support any of their stolen election claims. Here's what Trump campaign senior advisor Jason Miller told the committee about some of the so-called evidence of fraud that the campaign had seen from the Giuliani team.
So do you know what the examples of fraud, numbers, names, and supporting evidence was that you sent to Mo Brooks's office? And when I say you, I mean you or the campaign.
There's some very, very general documents as far as say, for example, here are the handful of dead people in several different states. Here are explanations on a couple of the legal challenges, as far as the saying that the The rules were changed in an unconstitutional manner, but it was to say that it was thin is probably an understatement.
Here's how President Trump's deputy campaign manager described the evidence of fraud that the
Remember when
campaign
NTG had to give testimony on the stand?
You never came to
No.
Learn or understand that Mayor Giuliani had produced evidence of election fraud. Is that fair?
That's fair.
And here's testimony that we received from the Speaker of the Arizona House of Representatives, Rusty Bowers, about an exchange that he had with Rudy Giuliani after the election.
At some point, did one of them make a comment that they didn't have evidence, but they had a lot of theories?
That was Mr. Giuliani.
Chief of Staff Mark Meadows told people that he thought Trump should concede around the time the Electoral College certified the result. But nonetheless, he later worked to try to facilitate President Trump's wishes. Here's what Cassidy Hutchinson told us.
During this period, I perceived his goal with all of this to keep Trump in office. He had very seriously and deeply considered the allegations of voter fraud. But when he began acknowledging that maybe there wasn't enough voter fraud to overturn the election, I witnessed him start to explore potential constitutional loopholes more extensively, which I then connected with John Eastman's theories.
The startling conclusion is this: even an agreed upon complete lack of evidence could not stop President Trump, Mark Meadows, and their allies from trying to overturn the results of a free and fair election. So let's return to that meeting at the White House on the evening of December 18. That night, a group showed up at the White House, including Sidney Powell, retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, and former Overstock.com CEO Patrick Byrne. After gaining access to the building from a junior White House staffer, the group made their way to the Oval Office. They were able to speak with the president by himself for some time until White House officials learned of the meeting. What ensued was a heated and profane clash between this group and President Trump's White House advisors, who traded personal insults, accusations of disloyalty to the president, and even challenges to physically fight.
Oh my God.
The meeting would last over 6 hours.
This is serious.
Here in the Oval Office, moving around the West Wing, and many hours later, ending up in the president's private residence. The Select Committee has spoken with 6 of the participants, as well as staffers who could hear the screaming from outside the Oval Office. What took place next is best told in their own words, as you will see from this video.
Did you believe that it was going to work, that you were going to be able to get to see the president without an appointment?
I had no idea.
In fact, you did get to see the president without an appointment.
We did.
How much time did you have alone with the president? And I say alone, you had other people with you, but
right
from his aides before the crowd came running?
Probably no more than 10 or 15 minutes.
Was in that...
I bet Pat Cipollone set a new land speed record.
I got a call either from Molly.
Oh, it's all good, Alio.
That I need to get to the Oval Office.
So that was the first point that I had recognized, okay, there was nobody in there from the White House. Mark's gone. What's going on right now?
I opened the door and I walked in. I saw General Flynn. I saw Sidney Powell sitting there. I was not happy to see the people in the Oval Office.
Explain why.
Well, again, I don't think they were providing. Well, first of all, the Overstock person, I've never knew who this guy was. Actually, the first thing I did, I walked in, I looked at him, and I said, "Who are you?" And he told me. I don't think any of these people were providing the president with good advice, and so I didn't understand how they had gotten in.
In the short period of time that you had with the president, did he seem receptive to the presentation that you were making?
He was very interested in hearing particularly about the CISA finding and the
Oh
terms
yeah, look
of
for Sydney's Dr. Pepper can.
13848
There it is.
that apparently
Is
nobody
she
else had
filming a commercial
bothered
for
to
Dr.
inform
Pepper or
him
what?
of.
Okay. Yeah, I've done that too. It's just crazy to have to giggle, and it must have been even crazier to try to appease a madman in the office. Yeah. Lots of people, D'Souza and Rudy. Yeah, all these people need to be like investigated or indicted.
The machines and some comment about like Nest thermostats being hooked up to the internet.
So it's been reported that during this meeting, Ms. Powell
with whom via the machines and some comment about like Nest thermostats being hooked up to the internet.
So it's been reported that during this meeting, Ms. Powell talked about Dominion voting machines and made various election fraud claims that involve foreign countries such as Venezuela, Iran, and China. Is that accurate?
That's fair.
Was the meeting tense?
Oh, yeah. It was not a casual meeting.
Explain.
I mean, at times there were people shouting at each other, hurling insults at each other. It wasn't just sort of people sitting around on a couch, like, chit-chatting.
Do you recall whether he raised to Ms. Powell the fact that she and the campaign had lost all of the 60 cases that they had brought in litigation?
Dan Simpson coming in hot with a raid of 13 viewers. Thank you. Sorry, let me get my bearings here. Hey, Omi, have a great stream. I appreciate that. Thank you for bringing your wonderful community over here, folks. If you don't know who I am A Difficult Truth. We do the news, we do the politics Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And join us for Saturday Catterday. Sorry if my voice is kind of not here. I'm just slowly recovering with a bout of COVID. If you guys haven't already, please consider following, subscribing, showing support to iDan Simpson. They do phenomenal job. Phenomenal work. And they play Fortnite. I know. In 2022. And we still have people playing Fortnite, but but that's what they do. No, I'm kidding. Please go follow iDan Simpson. They do fantastic work. Do it. If I don't see folks following the next time I'm in their stream, I'm watching you. I'm everywhere.
It was much more harsh to her.
So one of the other things that's been reported that was said during this meeting was that President Trump told White House lawyers, Mr. Hirschman and Mr. Cipollone, that they weren't offering him any solutions, but Ms. Powell and others were. So why not try what Ms. Powell and others were proposing? Do you remember anything along those lines being said by President Trump?
I do. That sounds right.
I think that it got to the point where the screaming was completely out there. I mean, you got people walk in, it was late at night, it had been a long day, and what they were proposing, I thought was nuts.
Nase Zero, thank you for the follow. Appreciate that.
Describe it as, you guys are not tough enough. Or maybe I put it another way, you're a bunch of pussies.
What?
Excuse the expression, but I'm almost certain the word was used.
Flynn screamed at me that I was a quitter and everything, kept on standing up and turning around and screaming at me. And at a certain point, I had it with him. So I yelled back. Either come over or sit your effing ass back down.
The president and the White House team went upstairs to the residence, but to the public part of the residence, the big parlor where you can have meetings in the conference room.
Oval? They call it the yellow oval?
Yes, exactly, the yellow oval office. I always
definitely not
upper.
sending our best.
And I'm not exactly sure where the Sydney group went. I think maybe the Roosevelt room. and I stayed in the cabinet room, which is kind of cool. I really liked it.
Oh, Rudy. Your political class is off to Amsterdam. IRI, Mike from PA, and Hassan are going. I assume TwitchCon, Amsterdam, correct? I don't know if I'm going to TwitchCon in the Cali side. We'll see. I mean, we'll see. There's still maybe another month left before I make a decision. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it would be nice. It would definitely be an experience. I've never been to Cali either. Can you imagine working for Trump? Talk about hell. True. Gotta be careful because that guy doesn't like to pay. I wouldn't, I wouldn't work for Trump at all. Under no circumstances. You're not guaranteed to get paid.
Escorting Rudy Giuliani off the White House grounds to, quote, make sure he didn't wander back into the mansion. Certain accounts of this meeting indicate that President Trump actually granted Ms. Powell's security clearance and appointed her to a somewhat ill-defined position of special counsel.
He asked Pat Cipollone if he had the authority to name me special counsel, and he said yes. And then he asked him if he had the authority to give me whatever security clearance I needed, and Pat Cipollone said yes. And then the president said, okay, I'm naming her that, and I'm giving her security clearance. And then shortly before we left, and it totally blew up, was when Cipollone and/or Hirschman and whoever the other young man was said, you can name her whatever you want to name her, and no one's going to pay any attention to it.
That's wild.
How did he respond? How did the president respond to that?
Something like, you see what I deal with this all the time.
What?
Over the ensuing days, no further steps were taken to appoint Sidney Powell, but there is some ambiguity about what the president actually said and did during the meeting. Here is how Pat Cipollone described it.
I don't know what her understanding of whether she had been appointed, what she had been appointed to. Okay. In my view, she hadn't been appointed to anything and ultimately wasn't appointed to anything because there had to be other steps taken. So that was my view when I left the meeting, but she may have a different view and others may have a different view.
This is wild.
Were any steps taken, including the president himself telling her she'd been appointed?
Again, I'm not going to get into what the president said in the meeting. My recollection is you're not appointed till steps are taken to get the paperwork done. And when I left the meeting, okay, I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not going to get into what the president said or said he wanted.
What? Wait.
When
I think that's kind of important. That's kind of important. Trump is a spoiled and deluded brat. I mean, that's being generous.
At the December 18 meeting.
Now that you mention it, probably both. In terms of I think she may have been of the view that she had been appointed and was seeking to, get that done, and
some of these folks are going to need therapy for Trump PTSD. I don't know. Remember, folks, all these people they worked for Trump. Okay? They're only there and they're only answering questions the way they're answering them because they're under oath. That's it.
That the statements were truly statements of fact. Not long after Sidney Powell, General Flynn, and Rudy Giuliani left the White House in the early hours of the morning, President Trump turned away from both his outside advisors' most outlandish and unworkable schemes and his White House counsel's advice to swallow hard and accept the reality of his loss. Instead, Donald Trump issued a tweet that would galvanize his followers, unleash a political firestorm, and change the course of our history as a country. Trump's purpose was to mobilize a crowd. And how do you mobilize a crowd in 2020? With millions of followers on Twitter, President Trump knew exactly how to do it. At 1:42 a.m. on December 19, 2020, shortly after the last participants left the unhinged meeting, Trump sent out the tweet with his explosive invitation. Trump repeated his big lie and claimed it was, quote, statistically impossible to have lost the 20.
Oh, yeah, wait. This is important. This is the tweet. This is the tweet, folks. In case we forgot. Greeley, I have stage 4 PTSD of post-Trump stress disorder. Yeah. Peter Navarro releases 36-page report alleging election fraud, more than sufficient to swing victory to Trump. Okay, so why didn't they present that evidence to court? Because it really doesn't exist, or was just not enough. A great report by Peter. Statistically impossible to have lost the 2020 election. Like, in other words, there's just no way, no possible way. Big protest in DC on January 6th. Be there. It will be wild. That was the infamous tweet.
6th. Be there. Will be wild. Trump supporters responded immediately. Women for America First, a pro-Trump organizing group, had previously applied for a rally permit for January 22nd and 23rd in Washington, D.C., several days after Joe Biden was to be inaugurated. But in the hours after the tweet, they moved their permit to January 6th, 2 weeks before. This rescheduling created the rally where Trump would eventually speak. The next day, Ali Alexander, leader of the Stop the Steal organization and a key mobilizer of Trump supporters, registered wildprotest.com, named after Trump's tweet. Wildprotest.com provided comprehensive information about numerous newly organized protest events in Washington. It included event times, places, speakers, and details on transportation to Washington, D.C.
That's very, very, very,
Good evening, I'm Judy Woodruff. On the NewsHour tonight, the hearings continue.
What? Jesus.
Major funding for the PBS NewsHour has been...
What? That's it? Even SCOTUS turned down Trump? Yeah, for most cases, right? What? That's it? Well. And so it is. Stream 1 hour ago. Alright, let's see.
The committee in recess
of its 6th most populated state. On December 15th, after the Electoral College certified the outcome, the Republican majority leader in the Senate acknowledged Mr. Biden's victory.
Wait, this is a completely...
in all 50 states.
So that he could hear, I guess there was
And just for the record, this was...
Just blocks from where the president sat that evening, excited for the next day.
This is nothing less than an epic struggle for the future of this country between dark and light.
Jesus. Okay, I remembered this now from Left Flank Bets. Okay.
between good and evil. And we will win this fight.
And the committee's also learned that Stewart Rhodes stopped to buy weapons.
You know, after, other than that, with my family, camping, playing basketball, playing games with my son.
Just what any ordinary American citizen, family man would do.
Yep, exactly.
So this committee has reviewed thousands of hours of surveillance footage from January 6th. During this review, we identified you entering the Capitol as we see in this video. Mr. Ayers, why did you decide to come to Washington on January 6th?
For me personally, I was, pretty hardcore into the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I followed, President Trump, on all of the websites, he basically put out, come to Stop the Steal rally, and I felt like I needed to be down here.
So you basically learned about the rally on social media and at some point made a decision to come to Washington.
Yep. I had some friends I found out were coming down. I just hopped on with them right at the tail end when I found out and came down here with them.
Thank you very much. The chair recognizes the vice chair, Ms. Cheney of Wyoming, for any questions she may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Ayers, when you entered the Capitol last year, did you believe that the election had been stolen?
At that time, yeah. Everything that I was seeing online, I definitely believed that's exactly what that was the case.
And when you heard from President Trump that the election was stolen, how did that make you feel?
Oh, I was very upset, as were most of his supporters.
I don't care.
Basically,
let's get to the other guy.
He had very seriously and deeply considered the allegations of voter fraud. But when he began acknowledging that maybe there wasn't enough voter fraud to overturn the election, I witnessed him.
Situation or something.
Spark that started a new civil war.
There we go. That's what I want.
He said in his speech, kind of like he's going to be there with us. So, I think I believed it.
I understand. We know that you illegally entered the Capitol that afternoon and then left the Capitol area later on. What made you decide to leave?
Basically, when President Trump put his tweet out, we literally left right after that come out. To me, if he would have done that earlier in the day, 1:30, we wouldn't be in this. Maybe we wouldn't be in this bad of a situation or something.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Maryland, Mr.
There we go.
Raskin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Van Tatenhoff, in the run-up to January 6th, Stewart Rhodes publicly implored President Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act, the 1807 law that allows the president to call up militias to put down a rebellion against the United States. And I want to get your thoughts about this in the context of your prior relationship with Stewart Rhodes. I understand that you had conversations with Rhodes about the Insurrection Act. Why was he so fixated on that, and what did he think it would enable the Oath Keepers to do?
Well, I think it gave him a sense of legitimacy, that it was a path forward to move forward with his goals and agendas. I think we need to quit mincing words and just talk about truths. And what it was going to be was an armed revolution. People died that day. Law enforcement officers died this day. There was a gallows set up in front of the Capitol. This could have been the spark that started a new civil war, and no one would have won there. That would have been good for no one. He was always looking for ways to legitimize what he was doing, whether by wrapping it in the trappings of it's not a militia, it's a community preparedness team. We're not a militia, we're an educational outreach group. It's a veteran support group. But again, we've got to stop with this dishonesty and the mincing of words and just call things for what they are. He's a militia leader. He had these grand visions of being a paramilitary leader, and the Insurrection Act would have given him a path forward with that.
They cut him a deal to testify, probably.
The president was communicating, whether directly or indirectly.
This guy's a piece of shit. Don't forget that.
That gave him the nod. And all I can do is thank the gods that things did not go any worse that day.
What did the Oath Keepers see in President Trump?
They saw a path forward that would have legitimacy. They saw opportunity, I think, in my opinion, to become a paramilitary force.
Last week, the Department of Justice indicated that it has evidence of the Oath Keepers bringing not just firearms, but explosives to Washington.
Yeah, like for anybody saying that there was no like weapons or anything like that, it's just wrong. These people were prepared. They had planned this out. They had weapons caches and rapid deployment forces in nearby states that could be there with weapons at a short notice, should that guy have given the green light.
Ahead of January 6th. And the committee's also learned that Stuart Rhodes stopped to buy weapons on his way to Washington and shipped roughly $7,000 worth of tactical gear to a January 6th rally planner in Virginia before the attack.
That's right.
Did you ever hear Rhodes discuss committing violence against elected political leaders?
Yeah, I mean, that went back from the very beginning of my tenure. One of the first assignments that he brought to me, wanting me to do as more of a graphic artist function, was to create a deck of cards. You may remember back to the conflict in the Middle East, where our own military created a deck of cards, which was a who's who of kind of the key players on the other side that they wanted to take out. And Stuart was very intrigued by that notion and influenced by it, I think. And he wanted me to create a deck of cards that would include different politicians, judges, including up to Hillary Clinton as the Queen of Hearts.
Jesus Christ. So take a second to absorb the implication here. Take a second to absorb what he's saying. He's saying that the Oath Keepers leaders told him to essentially assemble a hit list. There's no other... The guy said himself, let's not mince words, and I agree. That's a hit list. That's a hit list. Unfreaking real. I knew I had to listen to this guy. If anything that we got from this hearing, I knew that this guy's testimony was going to be important.
This is a project that I refused to do. But from the very start, we saw that. There was always the push for military training, including there were courses in that community that went over explosives training. So
Jesus,
yeah, this all falls in line.
Mr. Van Tatenhoff, you say in your very thoughtful...
Hey, Lee Spanner, how's it going? You know, they have all this testimony and nothing will happen to Donald Trump. I just don't understand it. Me neither. But in a normal, reasonable world, where accountability matters, where no one is above the law, we would see repercussions and consequences for this, right? But here we are.
Written testimony that we received today that you fear what the next election cycle will bring. And you also say that we have been exceedingly lucky in that we have not seen more bloodshed so far. I wonder if you would elaborate on those two statements.
I think as far as the luck goes, we've had the potential from Bundy Ranch on. I mean, being boots on the ground at these standoffs, and they were standoffs where there were firearms pointed across lines at federal law enforcement agencies, you know, whatever it may be with that particular standoff. But I think we've gotten exceedingly lucky that more bloodshed did not happen because the potential has been there from the start. And we got very lucky that the loss of life was, and as tragic as it is.
I mean, we got lucky that, really, two things. Well, a couple of different factors here. Number one, Trump's an idiot. So, that's a factor. Number two, there were certain appointees, officials, bureaucrats, whatever you want to call them, that needed to go along with his plan and didn't, and so it didn't work. And the vice president, as well, didn't go with it because he didn't feel comfortable. But make no mistake, if Mike Pence felt comfortable enough or felt that it was within his authority to reject the results, he would have done so. No doubt about it. If Mike Pence had the authority and had the confidence that he would have the backing of Republican lawmakers or courts or whatever, he would vote to overturn the will of the people. Mike Pence does not give a flying. Mike Pence does not care. Make no mistake, he would absolutely overturn the election if he felt comfortable enough. And the third thing is that honestly, luck. We see now that people are above the law. Yeah, that's true. Could they threaten Trump with prosecution from this if he dates to stand again? I mean, you would think that there's definitely some shenanigans that he could be prosecuted for. I mean, like, going back to even before he was president, like, I don't know. I just don't see any legitimate consequences happening to him, but hey, one can dream, right? Of any other group would have been burned at the stake for this, so I guess the only thing that they will give us from this is hopefully more people voting for them and avoid any of this. This sucks. Yeah, but I don't know. Whether or not Trump goes to prison, his reputation is ruined and Trump knows it.
That we saw on January 6th, the potential was so much more. Again, all we have to look at is the iconic images of that day with the gallows set up for Mike Pence, for the Vice President of the United States.
I mean, also, like, the potential for it is by design. Trump knew he's up in Schitt's Creek without a paddle. There was no path to victory for him when it comes to the election. When it comes to the election, there was no path to victory for Donald Trump at that point. It just wasn't going to happen. There is no world where Donald Trump won that election, okay? There's no world where he won the election. So, naturally, it violence. That's the only alternative.
You know, and I do fear for this next election cycle because who knows what that might bring. If a president that's willing to try to instill and encourage, to whip up a civil war amongst his...
Yeah, just to be clear, Alio, just don't vote for Republicans. Republicans are MAGA. DeSantis is MAGA. They're literally, the Republican Party is indistinguishable. Every single Republican candidate and platform it's just MAGA. That's it. That's them. That's the Republican Party. They have no business being anywhere near power.
Followers using lies and deceit and snake oil. And regardless of the human impact, what else is he going to do if he gets elected again? All bets are off at that point. And that's a scary notion. I have 3 daughters. I have a granddaughter.
I 100% agree.
I fear for the world that they will inherit if we do not start holding these people to account.
Yeah. Yeah. Believe it or not, I actually agree with that statement. If there's no accountability for this attempted coup, it's just an exercise for the next one. It just becomes a training exercise for the next one.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Van Tatenhoff. Mr. Ayers, I first want to ask you about what finally caused you to leave on January the 6th. We know that the medieval-style combat with our police, the occupation of the building, this was going on for several hours until the president issued at 4:17 a tweet, I believe, that included a video telling people to go home. Did you see that? Did that have any effect on what you were doing?
Well, when we were there, as soon as that come out, everybody started talking about it, and it seemed like it started to disperse, some of the crowd. Obviously, once we got back to the hotel room, we seen that it was still going on, but it definitely dispersed a lot of the crowd.
And did you leave at that point?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we left.
So in other words, that was the key moment when you decided to leave, when President Trump told people to go home.
Yeah, yep, we left right when that come out.
You were not a member of an organized group like the Oath Keepers or the Proud Boys, as most of the crowd wasn't. I wonder, on January 6th, was it your view that these far-right groups like the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys and 3%ers and others were on your side? Did you have any reservations about marching with them and rallying with them?
Well, I definitely didn't have a problem, you know. I was probably following them online myself. You know, I thought, you know, hey, they're on our team, good. That's how I kind of looked at it. At the time, you know, like, I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was a good thing.
I'm interested in hearing about what's happened to you since the events of January 6th. You told the vice chair that you no longer believe Trump's big lie about the election, but that's what brought you originally to Washington. Looking back on it now, how do you reflect on the role that you played in the crowd that day, and what is going on in your life?
That is the least of it, Alio. Yeah, at the very least, none of these folks should ever be allowed anywhere near government, period. Trump and all his colluding buddies. All of them. All of them. Including certain members. Sitting members.
Basically, you know, I lost my job. Since this all happened, you know, pretty much sold my house. So everything that happened with the charges, you know, thank God, a lot of them did get dismissed. Because I was just holding my phone, but at the same time, I was there. So I mean, it definitely, it changed my life, you know, and not for the good, definitely not for the, you know, for the better. Yeah, I mean, that's all I could say.
This is a person who didn't take 5 seconds to have critical thinking and is now dealing with what is, quite honestly, mild consequences. Amazing. Freaking amazing.
Loading the big lie about the election. How does that make you feel?
It makes me mad because I was hanging on every word he was saying. Everything he was putting out, I was following it. I mean, if I was doing it, hundreds of thousands or millions of other people are doing it, or maybe even still doing it. It's like he just said about that. You know, you got people still following and doing that. Who knows, the next election could come out, you know.
And even after all this damning testimony, evidence, tweets, text messages, firsthand accounts from aides, aides and like high up cabinet people, emails. After all of this, there are going to be people that are just going to look at that, or not even just they just completely shut off from all of this, and that's the sad part. That's the sad part.
They could end up being down the same path we are right now. I mean, just don't know.
Mr. Ayers, I see that your wife has joined you today, and welcome to Washington. We know this has been very difficult on you both and your family. What lessons, finally, do you want the American people to learn from the way you and your family have suffered as a result of these events?
Biggest thing is I consider myself a family man, and I love my country. I don't think any one man is bigger than either one of those. I think that.
I mean, clearly you must have thought that at some point. Clearly you must have thought that to be true if you're hanging on the word of this one man up until it got you into trouble, up until it got you in that seat, right? Up until it got you into that seat.
That's what needs to be taken. You know, people dive into the politics, and for me, I felt like I had, you know, like horse blinders on. I was locked in the whole time. Biggest thing for me is take the blinders off. Make sure you step back and see what's going on before it's too late.
Well, I want to thank you for your testimony and for appearing, both of you, today. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back to you.
Gentleman yields back. I want to thank our witnesses for joining us today. The members of the Select Committee may have additional questions for today's witnesses, and we ask that you respond expeditiously in writing to those questions. Without objections, members will be permitted 10 business days to submit statements for the record, including opening remarks and additional questions for the witnesses. Without objection, the chair recognizes the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Raskin, for a closing statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When Donald Trump sent out his tweet, he became the first president ever to call for a crowd to descend on the capital city to block the constitutional transfer of power. He set off an explosive chain reaction among his followers, but no one mobilized more quickly than the dangerous extremists that we've looked at today. Seizing upon his invitation to fight, they assembled their followers for an insurrectionary showdown against Congress and the vice president.
I mean, the way they did this is just unnerving, to say the least. It is unnerving.
On January 6th, Trump knew the crowd was angry. He knew the crowd was armed. He sent them to the Capitol anyway. You might imagine that our founders would have been shocked to learn that an American president would one day come to embrace and excuse political violence against our own institutions, or knowingly send an armed mob to attack the Capitol to usurp the will of the people. But you know, Mr. Chairman, the founders were pretty wise about certain things, and at the start of the Republic, they actually warned everyone about Donald Trump. Not by name, of course, but in the course of advising about the certain prospect that ambitious politicians would try to mobilize violent mobs to tear down our own institutions.
Yeah, I think one of the famous things was the fact to avoid political parties, but that's neither here nor there. I'm sad and worried that the American society is in terrible shape. Trump is worse than Nixon and probably will never maybe see jail time because of presidential title. Who knows? Who knows, my friend?
In service of their insatiable ambitions. In the very first Federalist paper, Alexander Hamilton observed that history teaches that opportunistic politicians who desire to rule at all costs will begin first as demagogues, pandering to the angry and malignant passions of the crowd, but then end up as tyrants, trampling the freedoms and the rights of the people. A violent insurrection to overturn an election is not an abstract thing, as we've heard. Hundreds of people were bloodied, injured, and wounded in the process.
Yeah, and this was an insurrection. And like, I don't know, there's still people who believe that it wasn't that bad. But no, it was. And the fact that this event happened is just unbelievable. It leaves you speechless. The fact that a president of the United States, with a literal touch of his finger, could assemble thousands and thousands of people to do an insurrection. And this is all because he threw a hissy fit because he lost the election. Fair and square. And the danger that this, the dangerous precedent that this sets, if there is not a strong response to this, which, not holding my breath for the Democratic Party, but if there's no strong response to this, it just becomes an exercise. For next time.
Including more than 150 police officers, some of them sitting in this room today. I want to give you an update on one officer who was badly wounded in the attack and is well known to the members of this committee because he testified before us last year. Sergeant Aquilino Gonell is an Army veteran who spent a year on active combat duty in the Iraq War and then 16 years on the Capitol Force. Nothing he ever saw in combat in Iraq, he has said, prepared him for the insurrection, where he was savagely beaten, punched, pushed, kicked, shoved, stomped, and sprayed with chemical irritants, along with other officers, by members of a mob carrying hammers, knives, batons, and police shields taken by force, and wielding the American flag against police officers as a dangerous weapon. Last month, on June 28th, Sergeant Gonell's team of doctors told him that permanent injuries he has suffered to his left shoulder and right foot now make it impossible for him to continue as a police officer. He must leave policing for good and figure out the rest of his life. Sergeant Gonell, we wish you and your family all the best. We are here for you. We salute you for your valor, your eloquence, and your beautiful commitment to America. I wonder what former President Trump would say to someone like Sergeant Gonell, who must now go about remaking his life.
Yeah, I wonder
if he could even understand
back the blue or whatever.
A patriot like Sergeant Gonell. In his inaugural address, Trump introduced one commanding image: American carnage. Although that turn of phrase explained little about our country before he took office, it turned out to be an excellent prophecy of what his rage would come to visit on our people. Mr. Ayers just described how the trust he placed in President Trump as a camp follower derailed his life and nearly wrecked his reputation and his family. A few weeks ago, we heard Shaye Moss and her mother, Ruby Freeman, Speaker Rusty Bowers from Arizona, and Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger describe how hate-filled intimidation campaigns by Trump and his followers made them prisoners in their homes and drove their stress and anxiety to soaring new heights when they refused to do Trump's bidding. American carnage. That's Donald.
He's a freaking mob boss. He's a freaking mob boss. He's a bully. He's a tyrant. He is a authoritarian fuck.
Trump's true legacy. His desire to overthrow the people's election and seize the presidency interrupted the counting of electoral college votes for the first time in American history, nearly toppled the constitutional order, and brutalized hundreds and hundreds of people. The Watergate break-in was like a Cub Scout meeting compared to this assault on our people and our institutions. Mr. Chairman, these hearings have been significant for us and for millions of Americans, and our hearing next week will be a profound moment of reckoning for America. But the crucial thing is the next step. What this committee, what all of us will do to fortify our democracy against coups, political violence, and campaigns to steal elections.
Yeah, so I like this is where it gets to be a little bit of political theater. It means absolutely nothing if there isn't a strong response to this, okay? That's it. Like, don't tell me that you're going to don't tell me that this is a democracy and all this other stuff. Great. What are you going to do about it?
Away from the people. Unlike Mr. Ayers and Mr. Van Tatenhove, people who have recovered and evolved from their descent into the hell of fanaticism, Donald Trump has only expanded his big lie to cover January 6th itself. He asserts the insurrection was the real election, and the election was the real insurrection. He says his mob greeted our police officers on January 6th with hugs and kisses. He threatens to take one of America's two major political parties with him down the road to authoritarianism, and it is Abraham Lincoln's party, no less. The political scientists tell us that authoritarian parties have two essential features in common in history and around the world. They do not accept the results of democratic elections when they lose,
True.
and they embrace political violence as legitimate.
True.
And the problem of incitement to political violence has only grown more serious in the internet age, as we have just heard.
True.
But this is not the problem of one party. It is the problem of the whole country now.
Yes, okay, great, but no. This is a very specific... There's a very specific finger, to point at, right? There's a very specific party and person to point at, okay? Yes, it is all of our problems because we all live here, but it's the Republican Party. It's Donald Trump. It's the Republican Party. That's it. That's who is to blame. Sadly, it took America 70 years to tax and RICO laws to prosecute the mafia.
American democracy, Mr. Chairman, is a precious inheritance, something rare in the history of the world and even on Earth today.
I don't know about that. There's what? What? Okay.
Constitutional democracy is the silver frame, as Lincoln put it, upon which the golden apple of freedom rests. We need to defend both our democracy and our freedom with everything we have and declare that this American carnage ends here and now. In a world of resurgent authoritarianism and racism and anti-Semitism, let's all hang tough for American democracy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Without objection, the chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Murphy, for a closing statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At one of our first hearings, Chairman Thompson explained that the members of this committee would not spend much time talking about ourselves. Rather, we would let the evidence play the leading role. And the chairman was right, because this isn't about promoting ourselves as individuals, it's about protecting the country we love. And it's about preserving what actually makes America great: the rule of law, free and fair elections, and the peaceful transfer of power from one elected leader to the next. But if I may say a word about myself and why I'm proud to serve on this committee. I'm the only member of this committee who was not blessed to be born an American. I was born in Vietnam after the Vietnam War, and my family and I fled a communist government and were rescued by the US Navy and were given sanctuary in America. My patriotism is rooted in my gratitude for America's grace and generosity. I love this country. On January 6th, 4 decades after my family fled a place where political never happens again, to defend our democracy. To me, there's nothing more patriotic than
Yeah, great. This is all empty politics, grandstanding. I need to know what you are going to do. Otherwise, I don't really care. I mean, I'm guilty of pulling the both sides argument quite a lot for talking's sake, but this is entirely on the Republicans, and there's no other out for it. They've attempted to and continue to attempt to hijack democracy, much in the mold of their electorate autocratic friends in Russia and elsewhere. Yeah, because all authoritarians are the same. They're all the same. They're copycats of each other. Fundraise, that's right. Get ready to dig deep into your pockets. Okay? Now I need you to come with me, okay? And I need you to dig deep into those pockets, okay? Are you with me? I need you to pick out a $10 bill and then find a $5 bill, okay? It could be 5 singles. But I need everybody in this chat to just close your eyes and dig deep. And then send it to the to the Democratic Party. All right. Yeah, she needs 15 before she can do anything. If I get just another $5, can we really ask the hard questions and arrest these? Yeah, if you donate, listen. If you personally donate, if you go up to Joe Biden himself, okay, and you give him the $5 personally, he'll let you put the cuffs on. Yep. That's 100% how it works. If this is just still a rehab session for the good Republicans, yeah, no, I don't know. If I hear that, if I hear in the next 5 or 10 minutes that, you know, there's still some good in the Republican Party, I'm gonna lose it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Without objection, the chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Wyoming, Ms. Cheney, for a closing statement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, let me put what you have seen today in a broader context. At the very outset of our hearings, we described several elements of President Trump's multi-part plan to overturn the 2020 election. Our hearings have now covered all but one of those elements: an organized campaign to persuade millions of Americans of a falsehood that the 2020 election was stolen by widespread fraud.
The Liz Cheney 2024
Launchpad.
Launchpad.
President Pence to refuse to count electoral votes. An effort
coming,
to corrupt
folks.
the U.S. Department of Justice. Efforts to
It's
pressure
coming.
state election officials and legislators to change state election results. A scheme to create and submit fake electoral slates from multiple states.
That just still
today,
blows my mind.
We saw how President Trump summoned a mob to Washington for January 6th, and then, knowing that that mob was armed, directed that mob to the United States Capitol.
That still just blows my mind that there was an unironic scheme between the Republican Party to shoehorn fake electors. It's just wild.
Every one of these elements of the planning for January 6th is an independently serious matter. They were all ultimately focused on overturning the election, and they all have one other thing in common. Donald Trump participated in each substantially and personally. He oversaw or directed the activity of those involved. Next week, we will return to January 6th. It's
Yes, including, come on, say the words, including members of my own party. Including members of my own party that coordinated with some of these schemes. And till this day, are still repeating the nonsense of stolen elections or whatever.
itself. As we have shown in prior hearings, Donald Trump and his legal team, led by Rudy Giuliani, were working on January 6th
And members of my own party.
to delay or halt Congress's counting of electoral votes. The mob attacking and invading the Capitol on that afternoon of January 6th was achieving that result. And for multiple hours, Donald Trump refused to intervene to stop it. He would not instruct the mob to leave or condemn the violence. He would not order them to evacuate the Capitol and disperse.
Along with members of my own party.
The many pleas for help from Congress did no good. His staff insisted that President Trump call off the attack. He would not. Here are a few of the many things you will hear next week from Mr. Cipollone.
Was that right?
I was, and others were. So.
Was it necessary for you to continue to push for a statement directing people to leave all the way through that period of time until it was ultimately issued after?
I felt it was my obligation to continue to push for that, and others felt it was their obligation as well.
Would it have been possible at any moment for the president to walk down to the podium in the briefing room and talk to the nation at any time between when you first gave him that?
And my mom told me to pray hard for everything. Climate change, just pray. And if not, hey, listen, buddy, it's God's will. Vaya con Dios. Healthcare, just pray about it. It'll go away. What? Wages. Just pray. Never mind organizing and getting involved with unions or talking with your coworkers. Never mind that. Just pray. It'll work.
It's 2 o'clock and 4:17 when the video statement went out. Would that have been possible?
Would it have been possible?
Yes.
Yes, it would have been possible.
And you will hear that Donald Trump never picked up the phone that day to order his administration to help. This is not ambiguous. He did not call the military. His Secretary of Defense received no order. He did not call his Attorney General. He did not talk to the Department of Homeland Security. Mike Pence did all of those things. Donald Trump did not. We will walk through the events of January 6th next week, minute by minute. And one more item. After our last hearing, President Trump tried to call a witness in our investigation, a witness you have not yet seen in these hearings. That person declined to answer or respond to President Trump's call and instead alerted their lawyer to the call. Their lawyer alerted us, and this committee has supplied that information to the Department of Justice.
Jesus Christ.
Let me say one more time. We will take any effort to influence witness testimony very seriously.
Jesus Christ. This dude, I mean, like, what is it going to take? Clear-cut evidence of witness intimidation. That's it. I mean, in this committee hearings alone, there are several instances of witness intimidation. But he's a hardcore Christian. Well, whew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields back. In my opening, I mentioned how we look to our leaders to serve as a fail-safe if people in this country refuse to accept the results of an election. That's part of the way those in positions of public trust uphold their oath, how they show fidelity to the Constitution. In the run-up to January 6th, Donald Trump had an obligation to tell his supporters to accept the results of the election. Instead, he urged them to further along the path toward mob violence.
Yes, that's true.
The idea of mob violence make me think of another sort of fail-safe. All across this country, there are different ideas about what role the federal government should play in our lives. In fact, up here on this dais, there are plenty of different ideas. But there are moments when the institutions of our federal government are the fail-safe. I am from a part of the country where, had it not been for the federal government and the Constitution, my parents and many more Americans like them would have continued to be treated as second-class citizens.
Great. And it is true that, you know, Trump had a obligation to to say, hey, listen, it's over. Okay, I lost fair and square. There was no problem with the election. We're going to do the peaceful transition of power, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Now you have an obligation. You are currently in a position of power. Your party is currently in a position of power. Do something.
The freedom.
If there isn't a strong and united response to this, so that this stuff never flies again, then what's the point? What's the point?
Freedom to be able to vote without harassment, travel in relative safety, and dine and sleep where you choose is because we have a government that looks over the well-being of its citizens. This is especially important in moments of crisis. When we have a natural disaster that state governments can't handle on their own, when there's an emergency that requires action by our public health services or our military, we have a federal government. What happened on January 6, 2020 was another one of those moments in history that tests the strength of our federal government. January 6th was an attack on our country. It was an attack on our democracy, on our Constitution. A sitting president with a violent mob trying to stop the peaceful transfer of power from one president to another. It still makes my blood boil to think of it.
Excellent. So what are you going to do about it? No, Trump, there's no such thing. Like, Trump doesn't know anything about being honest. He is a professional con man.
In a moment like that, what would you expect to see? You expect to see the President of the United States sitting behind a resolute desk in the Oval Office, assuring the American people that the attack would be repelled and the threat would be dealt with.
Yes, and now I expect the elected party currently in power to do what is necessary to make sure that these thugs, these authoritarian fucks, do not try this shit again. Grifter's gonna grift. True.
You'd expect to be reassured that there was a fail-safe. Instead, the President of the United States sent the mob. He disregarded the advice of the people who had taken an oath to the Constitution. He oversaw a scheme aided by people whose loyalty was only to Donald Trump.
No, he was... God. He was aided by the Republican Party in a scheme, several of them, to overturn the election. Some of which involved sending fake electors. That still blows my mind, folks. This is not okay. This is not normal.
There's nothing we can compare that to. There's nothing in our great nation's history that has ever come close to that sort of betrayal and dereliction. Thank goodness our system of government held in spite of a commander-in-chief who worked in opposition to what the Constitution designed. When this committee reconvenes, we'll tell the story of that supreme dereliction by the commander-in-chief, how close we came to a catastrophe for our democracy.
Yeah, and again, because of a sheer just trumping a sheer idiot and incompetence, and because certain bureaucrats or like appointees or whatever, and Mike Pence did not go along with it because he didn't feel comfortable enough to do it. He didn't feel the legal framework didn't work for him. But you best believe that if he had assurances, he would have voted to overturn the election. And he, because of luck, really, there are certain bureaucrats, including Bill Barr and certain folks of the DOJ, that didn't go along with this. And pure luck, pure incompetence, and, yeah. Jeez. And the fact that we have such a fragile way of doing things when it comes to the presidential election. Just a bad mix.
And how we remain in serious danger. The chair requests those in the hearing room remain seated until the Capitol Police have escorted witnesses and members from the room. Without objection, the committee stands adjourned.
And so it is. And so it is. We will see. But I'm not holding my breath for the Democratic Party to have a serious response to this. Hutchinson testimony jolts Justice Department to discuss Trump's conduct more openly. For the past year and a half, the Justice Department has approached former President Trump's efforts to overturn the election with a folly evidence strategy that critics appear to border on paralysis. True, if it's okay. And that limited discussions of its role even inside the department. Then came Cassidy Hutchinson, the electrifying public testimony delivered last month by Mrs. Hutchinson, a former White House aide who has witnessed many key moments, jolted top Justice Department officials in discussing the topic of Mr. Trump more directly, at times even with presence. Yeah, well, I'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Department officials have said Ms. Hutchinson's testimony did not alter their investigative strategy to methodically work their way from lower-level actors up to higher rungs of power. The only pressure I feel and the only pressure our line prosecutor feels is to do the right thing. Well. From 2021, the Washington Post reported on Thursday that the RNC has greenlit up to $1.6 million to help the former president battle probes into his private business. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The Republican Party is all the same. All the same. They're just MAGA. Two Washington men connected to the white nationalist group Patriot Front are facing charges related to the vandalizing of Pride murals. They were also arrested last month and charged attempting to riot at the Coeur d'Alene Pride Festival. Oh yeah, these were the Lourdes99. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. These were the thugs who came out of the U-Haul truck. And it looks like those folks also decided to vandalize a Pride mural and got arrested. Good. Ha. You love to see it, folks. These are, that was that incident where they tried to incite a riot. Good. You know why they got arrested? Because somebody saw something and said something. That's why they got arrested. The suspects are now charged with aiding and abetting graffiti, a misdemeanor. Colton Brown and Spencer Simpson were among 31 Patriot Front members who were arrested by Coeur d'Alene police and charged with attempting to riot at the town's Pride Festival. Anna Schlecht from the Unity in the Community says she wants the two to pay restitution for what volunteers had to cover up, and police are using video to identify more members. If you see something, say something. I remember this and thought, how much hate do you have to stick yourself in the back of a U-Haul truck with a bunch of dudes packed like sardines to do violence? Yeah, these are fascists. These are fascists. That's kind of the name of the game, right? Memo for the record. Hope you're well and enjoying the new schedule. I'm hanging in there, my friend. If you see something, say something, folks. All right. This one's hot off the press. The Biden administration says doctors must offer abortion if mom's life is at risk. The Biden administration on Monday told hospitals that they must provide abortion services if the life of the mother is at risk, saying federal law and emergency treatment guidelines preempt state laws in jurisdictions that now ban the procedure without any exception following the Supreme Court's decision to end the constitutional right to abortion. Department of Health and Human Services cited requirements on medical facilities in the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. The law requires medical facilities to determine whether a person seeking treatment may be in labor, whether they face an emergency health situation or one that could develop into an emergency, and provide treatment. If a physician believes that a pregnant patient presenting at an emergency department is experiencing an emergency medical condition as defined by EMTALA and that abortion is the stabilizing treatment necessary to resolve that condition, a physician must provide that treatment. When the state law prohibits abortion and does not include an exception for the life of the pregnant person or draws exception more narrowly than EMTALA's emergency medical condition definition, the state law is preempted. F these Patriot Front Nazis, true. I like the evening schedule, it's nice, by the way. Biden and VP Harris have 5 videos each on reproductive rights and guns on White House YouTube channel. Currently, even the states with the most stringent bans on abortions do allow exceptions when health of a mother is at risk, even though the threat of prosecution has created confusion for some doctors. This is wild. In a letter to healthcare providers, HHS Secretary Javier Becerra wrote that it is critical that providers know that a physician or other qualified medical personnel's profession and legal duty to provide stabilizing medical treatment to a patient who presents to the emergency department and is now found to have an emergency medical condition preempts any directly conflicting state law or mandate that might otherwise prohibit such a treatment. Under federal law, providers in emergency situations are required to provide stabilizing care to someone with an emergency medical condition, including abortion care if necessary, regardless of what state they live in. Said Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services Administrator Chiquita Brooks LaSure, CMS will do everything within our authority to ensure that patients get the care that they need. Mississippi's trigger law, which went into effect Thursday, says abortion will be legal only if the woman's life is in danger or pregnancy is caused by rape and has to be reported to law enforcement, and it does not have exemption for pregnancies caused by incest. Red flag. Red flag, folks. When asked about the Biden administration's new guidelines, Michelle Williams, Chief of Staff of Mississippi Attorney General Lynn Fitch, pointed to the existing exception to Mississippi's abortion law. The Biden administration's statement of existing law today is nothing more than maintaining the false narrative that women's lives are in danger in order to appease his base. That's wild. That is wild. They're trying to take the feet from under the pro-choice crowd. This actually hurts the cause? Wait, why? So I'm thinking that what your reasoning is because Because the Biden administration says, well, I mean, look, you can't deny life-saving, abortion. So yeah, hey, look, that's it. It's done. Rape is a good talking point. Now they can't use that. Wait, why can't they use that? Is actually helping move the Overton window to the right on this issue. Instead of fighting for full abortion access, they're going to settle on no abortions but for rape. No, I think that this is just to remind folks that there is still a duty to save the mother's life regardless, right? Like, I think that's the thing here. I mean, I don't disagree with you, obviously. And this protects women now and somewhat good, but the rhetoric this will generate is just going to move all the abortions away and only allow the rape one. Oh, okay, so I see what you're saying. Wolf Glenn kind of clarified that. So most women, 90% will not have an emergency, so we don't need to deal with that, right? We don't need to. Oh, okay. It's all coming together now. Okay, yeah. So the correct talking point, I mean, sure, obviously, to remind people that obviously you need to save the mother's life, while important, the line of rhetoric needs to be like, hey, this is a bodily autonomy issue, right? This is a bodily, at the end of the day, this is a bodily autonomy issue. And it's, quite frankly, none of the government's business. Biden should have come out and said that there's a prosecution for doctors who do not help people in need. Yeah. I mean, I think a better way of framing or rhetoric, using rhetoric, would be to just say, hey, it's the government's has no business in this. This is, at the end of the day, this is fundamentally a question about bodily autonomy. But doctors are still going to be brought up on charges in the emergency by the states. That is a possibility, Wolf Glenn. Isn't rape 0.05% of abortion cases anyways? Most of them are constantly... Wait, what? I don't know what that comment means. Isn't the life always at risk? Childbirth is dangerous. How is that risk? Yeah, that's a good point. I think that there's a comment down here. The Biden administration's statement existing law today is nothing more than maintaining the false narrative that women's lives are in danger in order to appease his base. Yeah. Pregnancy is incredibly dangerous. What are you talking about? Yeah. Pregnancy is incredibly dangerous. Anyways, the line of attack is simple. This is fundamentally an issue about bodily autonomy, and if you do not believe in bodily autonomy, you're an authoritarian fuck. That's it. Fundamentally, that's the question being posed when you talk about abortion. Do you or do you not believe in bodily autonomy? Is putting time limits on regular abortions infringing on bodily autonomy, or is there a point when it's just? I really think it depends, honestly. I mean, like, if you've got to save the life of the mother, I don't think it matters at the point of the pregnancy at that point. Because like it's kind of weird to entertain the idea that should we just allow abortions like at every stage? Well, yeah, yeah. The whole point is that if there's a medical emergency, because obviously, if you have a person who's like 8 months into the pregnancy, clearly they want the child. Okay, that's not. It's obvious that they want the child. Why would you? 8 months, really? Oh yeah, now 8 months. Now you're gonna want to terminate the pregnancy? No. But you should have the option if there's a massive medical emergency. That's the whole point. How's the lady car driver in Texas doing? No clue. I wonder. I'm sure if there's an update, we'll see. Anyways, thanks, Biden. Any day now, we'll get a collective effort to do something, anything, any day now. So this is why I get confused with the bodily autonomy. Absolute. The actual point seems to be a longer time allowance. Rather than anything happens to my body, I can do what I want with it. Yes. Yes, you can do whatever you want with your body. Yes. That's fundamentally the question being answered here. Yes. You can do to your body whatever it is that you feel like doing, as long as it only affects you. And you are under no obligation to be forced to sustain anybody, right? Like, that's why even at death, even in death, okay, you still have to have explicit consent to harvest an organ, right? Even in death, you choose what happens to your body. You are under no obligation to sustain anyone else. So yes, fundamentally it is about that. Abortion past 4 months is really dangerous since the baby starts developing bones. What? Bones? Anyways, if you're past 4 months, that's like more than half, about half the pregnancy. Stands to reason, most likely you want the child. So, what's the argument here? If you're already halfway through the pregnancy, it stands to reason that you want the child, okay? They want to take women's autonomy, then let women take their autonomy. Fair is fair. I bet women would make better decisions for them that will benefit all of us. I think the tube goes in quite so far, so it's not just ripping down. I have no idea. See you, Duke. Yeah, at 4 months. Oh, wait, hold on. Planet X2106. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. But really, I work as a doctor. Most people in abortions are between the ages of 3 to 5 months of pregnancy. I don't live in the US. I live in Germany, by the way. So it's all good. But yeah, I mean, it's within the... From what I understand, if it's within like the first trimester, I think we're good. Yeah, what about rape and incest? Yeah, like you should be able to terminate pregnancies, especially like within the first few months. Anyways, my point is, you're not going to move me from this position. Fundamentally, it is about bodily autonomy, and you have no responsibility or entitlement to anybody's body, right? That's fundamentally what it is. And yeah, especially if like the fetus isn't going to survive. Like you're just going to force the mother to carry that to term. Like if we're in month 4, right? And we find out that, I don't know, like the fetus isn't gonna make it. Like what? You're just gonna force. You're just gonna force them to have it. Like I don't know. Stillborn. Yeah. That's enough. That if you know for a fact that you're like already in, I don't know, month 4, and it turns out that it's gonna end up being stillborn. I mean, what? It's always been about controlling women. All this other stuff is distracting the fact. Yeah, it's all about bodily autonomy. Do you or do you not have a right to your body? Basically. Fundamentally, that's what it is.
Did Brazil just hit another deforestation record? And why has this been a good week for the oil company ConocoPhillips? Welcome to the Climate Recap from the Beckosphere Climate Corner, your go-to place for international and US-based climate news.
It's the least worrying thing about here. In Germany, it's really weird that the US banned all stages of pregnancy abortion. Honestly, I think they should follow the European model of abortion. I don't know what the European model is. Very simple. Just let people decide what they want to do with their bodies. Folks, hey. Hi. If you haven't already, and you do enjoy this content, make sure you hit the follow button, alright? You get 5 free emotes. Okay? 5 free emotes. Join us on the YouTubes, okay? And join us. Hit the big red subscribe button. It takes 5 seconds. It really does help us out. Join us on the Discord. And, hey, if you have a moment, spread the word far and wide that this is the chillest place to be for news and the politics Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. This has been your daily shill session. All right, let's get to the climate recap. And, oh yeah, while you're at it, folks, please go show some support to this channel. They're a friend of the channel, by the way.
Today is Tuesday, July 12th. Let's jump right into the news you need to start your day. Unfortunately, all we have today are extreme weather events and climate fails, so brace yourself. Let's start with the extreme weather events. Torrential rains have wreaked havoc on Pakistan for over a week now, and it has resulted in deadly floods. 135 people have been killed and hundreds left homeless. Like we've seen in South Africa, India, and Brazil, the flooding has disproportionately impacted poor communities, with the worst hit area being the poor southern province of Balochistan, where 57 people were killed. Wow. At least 10 dams were breached, and authorities told people to evacuate their homes as a consequence.
I didn't even hear about this. Here we allow up to 22 weeks without issue, then you need serious medical or mental needs. Yeah, I mean, it's... I don't know. I think that it fundamentally just... At some point, I mean, like, that's basically what Roe was, wasn't it? Roe basically set, like, a compromise.
The death toll might rise in the coming days. Then in Europe, Spain is in its second heat wave of the year, reaching a high of 110 degrees Fahrenheit or 43 degrees Celsius. Like last time, the hot air is coming from North Africa, and the heat is likely to last through most of the week. There's a high risk of forest fires. And then in the US, a fire has started in California's Yosemite National Park. Dubbed the Washburn Fire, it's threatening 500 old-growth sequoias in the Mariposa Grove. It started at the end of last week and has since doubled in size. 1,600 people, mostly tourists, have been evacuated. The fire is not contained at all right now. Many of those sequoias are over 3,000 years old, and while old-growth trees are more fire-resistant than the newer ones, fires are burning hotter and faster than they used to. Old-growth trees are essential for maintaining healthy ecosystems, and they are the trees that absorb the most carbon from the atmosphere. Firefighters are doing everything they can to save these trees from burning. And now we head straight into the climate fails. Brazil has hit a new record for Amazon deforestation for the first half of this year, according to the Brazilian Space Agency. An area 5 times the size of New York City was deforested since January, pushing the essential ecosystem closer to becoming a savanna and a carbon source instead of a carbon sink. The Amazon rainforest has lost 17% of its forest in the last 50 years, mostly to make way for big agriculture and mining. Locals and private landlords have purposely set parts on fire to avoid the responsibility of deforesting. Not that the Brazil government would do much about it anyways. Brazil has the most deforested land in Amazonia due to the Bolsonaro regime.
That's so messed up. Holy yikes, Batman.
Using short-term profits over long-term environmental health. We talked yesterday about how a lot of that land has been stolen from indigenous groups who would have likely conserved the forest otherwise. Not only is the rainforest important for taking up CO2 from the atmosphere, but it also cools the surrounding environment through transpiration. This might impact places as far north as Mexico and the US. In another part of South America, a Colombian court has ruled in favor of fossil fuel development after a lawsuit attempted to nullify regulations for fracking. The decision allows 7 non-conventional energy contracts worth $517.4 million to move forward in the Cesar province. 4 of those contracts are for the coal miner Drummond, 1 is for the oil company Pemex, and 2 are for the oil company ConocoPhillips. ConocoPhillips will come up again in a second. What should be interesting is the next president, Gustavo Petro, ran on the platform of ending fracking in the country. He takes office in August. In the U.S., the Biden administration continues to move away from its promise to stop all oil and gas production on federal lands by signaling support for the controversial Willow Oil Project in the National Petroleum Reserve of Alaska. The project will be run by ConocoPhillips and was initially approved by the Trump administration before a court ruled the project illegitimate because it didn't account for climate change and wildlife disruption in its environmental assessments. The oil company plans to have 5 drill sites, a processing facility, hundreds of miles of pipelines, nearly 40 new gravel roads, 7 bridges, an airstrip, and a gravel mine in the region known for polar bears, caribou, and migratory birds. On Friday, Biden issued a new environmental analysis to be conducted in which the Interior Department concluded the project would produce more than 180,000 barrels of crude oil a day and emit at least 278 million metric tons of CO2 during its 30-year lifetime from construction and drilling activity, as well as the crude oil being burned. The analysis came with several different options of how to proceed, from not drilling at all to having less drilling sites. The agency will make its final decision after a public comment period. Biden is supposedly doing this along with issuing other lease sales on federal lands and waters over the past 2 weeks in the name of bringing down energy costs. But new projects take years before they impact the market. So these projects will just further the U.S.'s reliance on fossil fuels for years to come. The International Energy Agency and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change have both said that there should be no new large fossil fuel projects if we are to keep warming below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels.
I need to find
like
that
the
in
offshore
comment.
oil projects, Biden has left it up to the Interior Department to decide the fate of the project. I'll keep you posted. Meanwhile, a state court temporarily blocked Pennsylvania from participating in the regional greenhouse gas initiative shared with other East Coast states, siding instead with coal interests. Participating in the program would mean implementing, administering, and enforcing a carbon pricing policy meant to curb power plant emissions. This feels like what happened on a national level recently, but now it's at a state level. Governor Wolf plans to appeal this decision in the state Supreme Court. Originally, this governor made Pennsylvania the first major fossil fuel state to adopt a carbon pricing policy. Pennsylvania is the 3rd largest coal-producing state in the country. The tax would have started on Friday if not for this injunction. We'll have to see how this appeal goes. And that was your depressing and short climate recap for Tuesday, July 12th. Hopefully tomorrow we'll have more good news.
This is
if
all
you like
the
the work I do,
sources.
please follow this podcast, give it a 5-star rating, leave a review, and consider checking out the Beckosphere Climate Corner YouTube channel. Remember to talk about the climate crisis every single day and to support your local news organization.
Based. All right. Yeah, that's the source base. I think that NYT article is the one that she's referencing. No problem. I must not be thinking with clarity. I just don't see what wealth, property, or power is worth when there's no more planet. That's because we got way too different priorities here. See, I am a massive oil company CEO, and the only thing that I need to care about in the near present time is how much profit I need to generate to my shareholders. That's it. That's it. Besides, more likely than not, I'm probably maybe towards the end of my life. These like old boomer CEOs, billionaire oligarchs who own these companies, generally speaking, are not exactly on the young side. So hey, I'm outie anyways. What do I care? Good luck, everybody. So that's the difference. The difference is that the concept of looking at the bigger picture is not of their interest. It's what they can produce to shareholders now, in this quarter, or the upcoming quarter, however it is that they, divide that. But you're right. It matters not. Right, the valorization. Correct. The power, the influence, the power that comes with the money is is superseding is superseding our ability to make any meaningful change required. Unfreaking believable. I found the link for the project if anyone wants to read the environmental impacts in the statement and comment. Send it to me. Wait, actually, hold on. What? I'm out of VIP spots. Okay. Well, send it to me, Echo. Okay. Let's try this again. All right. Echo Resto Dragon. Satire is dead since 2016 and Trump and MAGA. Well, yeah, we're living in a post-truth world, right? All right, Echo. I gave you a diamond. You should be able to post links. Alio. The man, the myth, the legend. Themselves. What? Rating? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You got a shiny, bright and shiny diamond, all right? Here we go. All right, this is the a petition that she was referencing and that Echo Resto Dragon found. Go forth and spread this link and answer the petition and or public comment, I should say. There we go. Here's a list of them, I think.
That he got rid of the pipeline. Get rid of the pipeline. Get rid of our energy. Start this downfall. Because we need energy for everything. Do y'all know that? And they would talk about the Green New Deal. You know, climate change. I'm going to help y'all with that real quickly. I'm I'm gonna do it in the Wrightsville way, so you can understand what I'm saying. We, in America, have some of the cleanest air and cleanest water of anybody in the world. So what we do is we're gonna put from the Green New Deal millions or billions of dollars cleaning our good air up. So all of a sudden China and India ain't putting nothing in there cleaning that situation up. So all their bad air is still there. But since we don't control the air, our good air decided to float over to China, bad air. So when China gets our good air, their bad air gotta move. So it moves over to our good air space. And now we gotta clean that back up.
God dang it, I knew that. Anyways, thank you, Dr. Walker. Truly explaining to us the intricacies of climate change. Pro streamer moment. I know. All right. That was a good meme. Folks, I do want to thank you guys for hanging out. I appreciate that. Thank you for bearing with me. I thought I heard, and here I thought Trump was talking a word salad. Oh no, this is some key scientific explanation we're getting here, okay? I do want to thank you guys for hanging out here in the evening schedule. It really does mean a lot that you guys are hanging out. I appreciate it. Thank you for sticking with us. They mostly stopped using China as an excuse for not doing anything because China's actually improving environmentally. Yeah, they're doing some things good. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's a whataboutism. Even if they did nothing, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Folks, if you guys enjoyed, thanks for the links. It was fun and chill too. Thank you. I appreciate that. Wow, thanks. I really do appreciate it, folks. I mean, it means a lot that you guys, despite the change, and I know it's different. Some of you can, some of you can't stick to the different schedule, but regardless, I appreciate all the support that you guys have given. Thank you, Alio, for the raid. Thank you, iDan Simpson, for the raid. Thank you to all the new followers. Planet X 2106, Lourdes, Skeeter, Nase Zero, thank you so much. Thank you for the biddies. Damn. Wait, actually, chat, hold on. This is very important. I'm just going down through the thing here. We have a cute animal video that we did not go through. So we do have a cute animal video that needs to be done. I almost missed it. Almost missed it. All right, I think, let's see. What do we have? Lamb is obsessed with... Aw, okay, let's do that one.
It's amazing. He's talking about...
You crazy. Granny, you crazy. I brought my lamb every day to the office. As soon as I brought him in, all my coworkers fell in love with him. But he bonded the most with one of my coworkers, Brittany. over lunch break. I would put him down on the ground. He immediately would run right over to her and start headbutting her. He always gravitated towards her, and she would sit on the floor with him for like an hour straight. That was so cute. He doesn't really play with me. It's almost like he knows that's my mom. I'm not really supposed to beat up on her.
Catnapping? I don't know what Rakita does during this time. I mean, like, sometimes I'll find her in her cat condo, where sometimes she'll be out and about with mom, so it just depends. She might be in bed. She might be in bed with my girlfriend.
Graham, he was in a lot of pain.
Aw, poor thing.
One of his legs was broken, and
No.
the farmer had to surrender him to me. I was really thankful that I was able to help him.
Poor thing.
Oh my god, he's so sleepy. He's a sleepy boy. He had his surgery, and after his recovery, he was a wild man. He was like, I feel better. Instantly already trying to climb the walls, jump on things.
Aww.
Because he had major surgery, being a crazy man would have delayed his healing process. So bringing him to work was just the easiest thing to do. He kind of got into a routine. In the morning, we would go to work together. So we'd get to work and he'd go back in his little pen on lunch break. She would sit down on the ground with him and play, and he'd get so tired, and then he would literally sleep for the rest of the afternoon because he was exhausted. In the car, he would literally just curl up on my lap and go to sleep.
That's so adorable.
Grammy, Mammy, you ready to go home? Are you ready to go home?
After I got the green light from his vet and he started to be like a real sheep, we started to explore the outside world a little bit.
It's a big day for Graham. It's a big day, buddy. We're going outside. Do you love it out here? Oh. You like Squirt?
He immediately took to Olive and Squirt. They kind of just formed this little trio. It was really sweet.
Hi. Hello. Was you eating some grass? Hi.
So now that Graham is an outside little lamb, we stopped bringing him to work. Brittany's always asking how he's doing. She loves to get the updates and all the pictures. It's very, very heartwarming to see this wild little man who's kind of just taken life into his own hands. It shows all they need is a little bit of love to get a chance at life.
Hi, Bubba.
Aww. That's a cute animal video if I've seen one, huh? All right, folks. We did it. We went through everything that we needed to go through. As always, again, folks, my gratitude. I just can't find the words to continuously express how thankful I am for you folks hanging out here. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. Join us on the YouTubes. Takes 5 seconds. Spread the word far and wide that this is the chillest place to be for news and politics Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thank you, Echo. Get well soon. Thank you. Don't worry. We're getting there, all right? All right, folks, we're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya.